All right. So the last time we met, and this is for you, for the members that are here now that are new. That's okay. Don't worry about this. I'll reiterate some things, but this is just a baseline here. We were discussing the RHCE and RHCA. All right. So the RHCE is Red Hat certified, I guess it's engineer now. And the RHCSA is the, I guess, just the admin. I think E is the expert. So for the admin side of it, it's like just doing system administration, right? So here you start out with the basics of this, and then there are other classes that are basics before that, and this is why I pulled up the Linux Academy here. So some other classes that get you kind of into Linux are, if we skip over learning Vim, that's a basics because that's an editor inside of Linux, and I'll show you that in a minute. And then some other things that they have some basic Linux classes that get you started, and so does Red Hat, but they're kind of expensive. So I advise you to get a uh, a subscription to the Linux Foundation and run from that, or you can go to Udemy or whatever you feel comfortable with. But like here, Linux, by example, from novice to pros, something you look at mastering the command line and so forth. So anyone that knows me, that I teach all my classes from command line. I hardly ever open up a GUI. When I see a GUI, I just get frozen and just say, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I immediately open up a command line and figure it out. But some of the basics that you need to know in Linux are how to move around in the command on the command line. Um, what are packages? What are services? What are native tools to just a baseline OS? So those are things that that I think you all should be aware of. Can you all see that now? Is that bigger? So hold on, let me see. What about
Yeah,
now? That better?
looks good.
All right. So these are just like some basic classes that I think you should be aware of, and I did do some basic training on that. I may reiterate some of that, but I don't want to go into too much detail on some of that. All right. So in terms of the RHCE and the RHCA, let me get out of this screen here because I need to be able to move around. Do do do. You should get the RHCSA first, and then you should get the RHCE. Now, inside of the Linux Academy, we're gonna go. I'm already on the Linux stuff, so let me go here and let me just type RHCSA. Okay, so here is the class. It says 38 hours. Let me tell you, if you do like how I do, I sit down and just I try to look how long the modules are, and I say for a weekend I'm gonna do a module for the weekend. And when I say a module, I mean this entire thing here. Just pace yourself. Like, spend 2 hours here, 2 hours there, and just pace yourself and do it. But with that being said, as you can see, it talks about some stuff. They start out with essential tools. They get you going there. And then they start talking about how the operating system works and runs. And then they move into the storage and then the file systems. Now, why am I showing you all of this? I am showing you this because this is really like a baseline for what most interviewers ask in terms of questions. So you'll get questions, and I'll go over that in a minute, but you'll get questions really based from here. And if we go back and look at the RHCE, let's look at that. Oh, come on. Let's go. If I'm scrolling too fast, I apologize. I know for some people it make them dizzy. There's the CSA. So let's do EX300. I think it's what it's called. Oh, it's not showing up. I don't know why. Let's look. Intermediate, Kubernetes. Come on, I know you're on here. 280. They may be updating the course, so they might have taken it down. That's the OpenStack. Huh, they might have taken it down. And they may be updating the course. I have to hop. They have Linux Academy has they have a Slack group as well too. So I may hop in there and see if they're taking that down. I doubt that they have, but who knows? I think that course is only like 5 more hours. Really, your meat and potatoes is that RCSA, and then they have let's go here. They have the RCSA, and then they have the RACE. So let me see if they got uh uh a detailed information on here. So yeah, so in the RACE you start getting into networking and configuration management and really integrating other things, your HTTP, DNS, NFS, SSH, NTP. I mean, these are just this right here kind of is really some questions that people will ask on on not an exam but on a in an interview itself. So what is I say that and I'm gonna go right into it. What does a basic interview for Linux look like? So I can tell you from me doing interviews, questions that I would ask. Um, I would ask questions, and let me bring up a terminal so that you're not just looking at a blank screen. All right, so let's get this over here. I think you should be able to see that. All right, so some of the basic questions are that I start out with is how do I find the host name of a machine? And if I type host name, that's going to give me the host name of a machine. If I want to find out what the IP address of this machine is, I can type IPA. That's one. And another way is type ifconfig. And if I just want it for a particular interface, as you can see here, I have two interfaces, ETH0 and the LO meaning local host. I'm going to clear my screen, typing clear. And if I do ifconfig ETH0, that gives me the actual IP address of that particular interface. Now, a caveat is in Rail 7, which I think I am in, so I can find that out by typing cat Red Hat release, etc Red Hat release, and I'm in 7.4. In 7.4 and 7, ifconfig is supposed to be depreciated, so you're not longer to use that. You're supposed to use IP, and then it gives you like your different things that you can do. So the link or an address or what have you. That's what you're supposed to be using now. Just a FYI, in case anybody is seeing this on YouTube and they want to make a comment. I know. All right. So to me, those are basic questions like how do you find a host name? How do you find out what the IP address of a machine is? How do you change the IP address of a machine? There's a couple of ways to get to answers, but my go-to is using Vim and opening up a particular file. So anyone who ever uses Vim, they have what they call Vim Tutor, and it walks you through on how to use Vim and so forth. So if you ever want to hop on our Linux box and use Vim Tutor, it'll walk you through how to use Vim, shortcuts, how to read things, and so forth. So I'm just going to show you how to change a uh, a particular interface. In this case, I had to open up etc sysconfig network dash scripts ifcfg eta0. There's vim and then there's vi, and I'll show you a difference in a minute. So as you can see in Vim, I get the colors and so forth, and it's called Vim Enhance. But if I go in here and change this IP address right here, this is my public IP address. This is my secondary IP address on a different network, and then you can see the assigned the net mask. And then on boot, meaning that when I restart this, it'll restart on boot, and the default route is set up to yes. So what does all that mean? So if I type uh, if I type IP route, oh come on, IP route, no, fine. So let's do IPA, and you'll see that that um that slash, you see that slash 18 right here. That's referring back in here to this subnet in here, where this subnet resides. So that's what that is. So let's go back and say, let's show the default route. I know there is a IP. Oh no, route dash A or route. If I look at just route, you'll see my default route is this. And these are just basic questions. So you no need to write all this stuff down, no need to worry about anything. I just want to show you some basic stuff and show you about basic information in terms of, when it comes down to interviewing. So the two classes are the RHCSA, the RHCE, and then there's some beginner classes like with Vim, and then just understanding how to move around on a command line. So why did I bring all of that up? Okay, so I brought all of that up because most of the time you need somewhere to study. So if you want to study, you either have to turn your laptop or your Linux or your Windows box or some kind of secondary resource into um, I guess a Linux box. So some people use Ubuntu, some people use Linux. I mean Red Hat Linux. If you're going for the Red Hat exam, I would use the Red Hat Linux one. But inside, if you don't have any of that, I would use something like DigitalOcean. I would use Google Cloud, Amazon, or you can set up VirtualBox. So here is VirtualBox. So what VirtualBox allows you to do, you'll install, and let's look at a picture here. Um, let's see if we can get that picture back. Of course not. Here we go. All right. So as you can see here, you'll install and you'll get some interface similar to this. And with that interface, you can click right here. It would be new, and then you would create a new VM. But remember, anything that you're creating on your laptop, you'll have competing resources. So if you don't have a lot of memory and you want to give your VM a lot of memory, or if you only have 2 gigs of memory, you're probably going to make you can make a large VM if you have a big size hard drive, but you may not be sharing that much memory. So remember, there's always going to be some type of competition with the resource. And remember, VirtualBox itself needs some resources as well. And then you're running something on top of that. So it's just, for me, it's just easier to go out to somewhere like Google Cloud or something like that. So I'm showing you this right here, this nested virtualization. That's only because this allows you to create, I guess, like, uh, you can look at the hypervisor for your cloud stuff as one layer of a hypervisor, and then you're going to enable another hypervisor so that you can create VMs on top of that. So it's called nested VMs, and they have a picture down here. So you have this hypervisor here, which is the actual your cloud stuff, which is Google Cloud, AWS. and then you're going to enable an hypervisor on top of that. And once you enable that hypervisor, that's going to allow you to create nested VMs so that you can create those VMs on top of that. Why is that important? That's important because inside the Red Hat exam for the RHCSA, they want you to actually be able to use KVM, which is their hypervisor that they use. And I believe AWS and Google Cloud have both switched over to KVM as well. They're using that hypervisor as a way to build VMs, so, or instances, I should say. And so once you build your instance on top of that, you can then start playing around with stuff that Red Hat wants you to be able to do, like create a VM, kickstart a VM, um, shut one down, set up the networking for it. But if you don't have resources at home or anything like that, you could do something like that out in Google Cloud, or you could do something like that out on DigitalOcean or Azure and AWS. So that's the reason why I wanted to show you that. Does anyone have any questions? I know this is like really high level stuff, but it's just to give you a way to study if you want to go down that route, if it's something that you want to pursue at home. Any questions? No? Okay. All right. So the next one that I wanted to show you is IT Pro TV. It's another one that I use. Here is a class that they have on like getting started with command line. So what's the difference between them and Linux Academy is the ones at Linux Academy is just voice and you listening, versus here you actually are like they'll do live classes like this where you actually log in, you're log into their website, you'll bring up a terminal and you'll go live with them, kind of like how I do, except you just don't see me. So that's the difference. Some people need someone that they can listen to and see at the same time, versus someone may just be okay with going back and just looking at videos and then walking through the steps and then asking questions later. With them, they do live training. So that's what's really cool about them. So they're in studio and they're based out of Gainesville. So pretty cool. And the other one is Udemy, and then Udemy. Oh, I wouldn't say Cloud Academy unless you were learning. Let's go look at Cloud Academy. They might have changed their model. Let me see. They didn't really have a lot of Linux classes. They were more based about just building stuff in the cloud. Let's look at their content library here. Yeah, see, they're just basic cloud stuff. Um they're not Linux based, even though their stuff is built on top of Linux. They're not really like, hey, this is what Linux is and this is how you get started. Yeah, see, they're more cloud based information. Let's look at their beginner stuff. Yeah, AWS and yeah, Chef. Well, yeah, they're not really like getting down to the lower level of things. All right, so let's get started with some basics here. Does anybody need a Linux box, or do you need a terminal to play with, or you just want to follow along? If you need a Linux box, let me know so we can get you one. If not, you can follow along. And like I
This
said,
is Lucy. I haven't downloaded a Linux box. I was just gonna follow along. Is that something that you recommend
I mean,
we do
yeah,
now?
yeah. If you just want to watch and then you can hop on another time, you can get a Linux box and um, follow along back again with the class and
Okay.
watch the commands.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give you all a quiz. Let me see if you were paying attention. How do I find the host name of the server that I'm on?
You typed in host name.
All right. All right. Lucy gets a box. Let's give Lucy a sticker as well. Host name. So how do I find out the IP address of the machine that I'm on? Raymond,
IS. Oh, sorry.
Raymond, or you get Lucy? That's fine. Either one.
IS config.
Yep. Right. So you just learned how to find the host name. You just learned how to find the IP address. Important things to know. All right. So I'm going to show you these other basic commands about the system, and I'll show you important things that about it too. So if I type a df minus h, what that is showing me is how the file system is actually partitioned out, and it's also showing me in human readable format the percentages, the size, and the used and available. So one thing that's really cool about Linux is there's always a tool to help you out with trying to figure out what does the command actually do and so forth. And not everybody makes their packages with a man page, but the man page is your help. It's manual, right? So if I do a man on df, it's gonna give me information about like the reporting of the file system. As you can see here, report the file system disk spaces usage, and then it goes into different options. So when it says options, you see the dash here. This dash A is the short uh the short command of it. So if I did a df dash A, if I wanted to if I wanted to do the long command of that, I would do dash dash all. So let's run that command. So let's do df dash A, and you see that it gives me everything, right? What's the difference between df dash A and df dash dash all? Nothing. They're the same command. It's just give it. I could either do the shorthand term or the long way. So let's go back to the man page of df. As you can see in here, I have other things that I can get. I can get the block size. I can get the show statistics for files instead of mount points. Let's do that. Let's do a df dash dash direct. And so, as you can see here, it's in a format where I really don't understand, right? So let's see if I do a dash H, will it do it? Yeah. So the dash H gives me that human readable format. So let's go back to our man page. And as you can see down here, you see that dash H is the human readable format. If I do dash dash total, let's look at that. df dash dash total. You see, I'd still get a format that I don't understand, but let's do a dash H on that, and I get the same results. But as you see down here, it totaled everything for me on that. Versus up here when I did a dash H with this one, it didn't total everything for me. So down here with the dash H and the dash dash total, I get the total in a human readable format. Whereas in here, I didn't get that total in a human readable format. So pop quiz for people. How do I find the different options for a command? The answer is man pages. That's the answer. If I want to find out from command line different things, I can do dash dash help as well too. And you can see it printed out some information, but not in detail like you have in the inside of the man page. So let's go back to the man page. You can see I have inodes that I can get. I also have just so if I had a file system, I mean, if I had an NFS file system mounted and I don't want it to go out and give me that information, only want local file system information, I pass the dash L. the T for the type, and then they got a little bit more information down here. So what I've just shown you is how to use the man pages and how to use the different options that you may have with inside the man pages. But you can also run a df dash dash help on the command line to show you different things that you may have. So like um, here they talk about block size. You see the dash B and then the block size. They also say show statistics for a file instead of the mount point. Well, that one with the dash B, it was just dash dash direct. It was by itself. Dash dash total was by itself. I don't know why it's falling under the dash B. It makes it look like it's a dash B, but it's not. It's just showing that there is no shortcut. There's no shorthand for it. Like there's no dash dash DI or no dash dash TO or anything like that. It's just showing you that this is the actual command for that. Any questions on this so far?
Regarding the man, can you just type man and that pulls out all your information, or do you have to type DF?
So I have to type man, and let me show. Let's see. Let's try something. Man dash dash help. Let's see what happens when I type dash dash help. All right. So what man does is let's look and see. Man wants uh when it says a section, they're actually talking about they actually want man and a command. So your commands, which is brings up a good point, and it's a roundabout point, but I'm getting ready to get into it, right? So if I cd, which is a command to change directories, over to slash bin and do a ls. Okay, this location here, CD, I CD'd over to slash bin. And if I'm not sure where I'm at, you see down here at the bottom, I did a PWD and slash bin. Tells me, this PWD tells me what directory I'm currently in, and I'm in the slash bin directory. And I got there by typing change directory to bin, right? So let me clear and do ls. This bin file, this bin directory, and sbin directory are very important. Why? Because these are your commands, or I should say your binaries that actually run on your system for you to get back information. So let's scroll up here. You see there is a df right there, right? Is this command runs when I type df. Well, how does it know to run? Because it's in my path. So if I echo $path, you'll see that uh, user bin opt go. There's a root bin. There, and because I'm root, everything is probably falling under user bin for me. And then there's user bin. So you ask why does you have a man and then I do a df? Well, it needs a man and then a command, and that command, those commands are found in slash bin. And then if I cd over to sbin, you'll see that I have files in here or commands in here under sbin. And let me go up to df. I want for points right back to um what you call it, it's not in here. So let's tell you the difference between these two. All right. PWD, SBIN are usually ran by only users who are root on the box. What is common that you can run is things in the bin directory. So if I made me another user and that user had to run a DF, they could run a DF. But that same user could not run anything inside of this directory here unless I give them permission to. So they can't run a file system check. They wouldn't be able to run a Z dump. They won't be able to do a post lock or a IF up or IF down. You can see there's IF config here. Let's go over to bin and see if there is a uh, IF config in there. It may be. They should be able to get that information. It may just have another pointer somewhere. Yeah, see, that's not there. Yeah, that's not there. So apparently they just can't run that on its own without some type of sudo permissions or something of that nature. Which is, I don't think it's true. Let me see something. User bin. And let's look for IF config. Do do do. Yeah, I don't see it. So yeah, there has to be a root user in order to do that. I know that's a roundabout way to answer your question, but that's what happens. So if I do, let's look at this sudo replay. If I do man on this, on sudo replay, because I'm root, I'm able to do that because I think that is a, let me see, where am I at? No, user bin, so you're able to do this as a regular user. So sudo replay plays back a list of plays back or lists the output logs created by sudo when replaying. Sudo replay can the can play the session back in real time or play back uh, just to adjust the speed, which is really cool. Never knew about it. This is my first time ever hearing anything about it. Hmm. Let's see something here. Sudo replay. Dash H. What does that mean? List available sessions. So dash L. Never heard of it. Specify directory for session logs. Huh, I have to play with that. That could be very interesting. But I'm glad only root has that permission on it, because imagine if somebody else had that was a regular user that could play back root's sessions and get information. That'd be real interesting. But yes, so that's why you have the man pages. There's also, outside of the man pages, there is also info. So let me see if I do info, excuse me, pseudo replay. It gives me a different look, gives me more of a description and just information on it. Versus in when I do a man on this, you can say I get the description, but at the beginning it gives you a brief synopsis of what you can do, and then a little bit more detail on information, and it gives you the files that it reads through and so forth. So, oh, let's try that. Let's try this. I don't have that user on my box, but um, let's Control C. Um, okay, unable to open. Let me go back. That, I guess, do you need to specify something? Just curious about what it did. You don't have to worry about this, but just curious about what it was doing. So let's recap. The one way to find help is the man pages. Another way to find help is info. And the reason why you're able to run man pages on a command is because of the bin directory and the user s bin as root. You can run that those things. So the man pages takes a man and a command. So remember where the commands come from and so forth. Which brings me to another topic. So it's clear. And let me do a LL gives me a loan listing like that, or I could do the LS minus L. You see, they give me the same thing. So I'm gonna do a LL. All right, let's start at the top. Remember, I told you we were just talking about the bin directory. Well, you see that it's in this. I guess you can call it like a blue green color. um it's in this blue green color because it's a link. And how do I know that it's a link? Well, this L right here in the front of these permissions here lets me know that that is a link, and I know that it's a soft link to user bin. What does that mean? A soft link meaning that I am pointing directly to the uh, bin directory, as a soft link meaning they don't share the same inodes. So ls minus li, and I'm showing you inodes right now. This is the inode of this this link, right? So if I did a let's go over that. Let's go over the temp, and I'm gonna make a link, a soft link, and let's call it um the way they work is source destination. So the source would be etc and then tem etc. All right, so let's do it ll. So in here I made a soft link to point to etc. So basically if I cd to tam etc, I'm actually in the etc directory. That will get me to the etc directory. Let's go back to the temp. I want to show you some stuff. All right. So now I made a soft link. Now, if I make a hard link, ln tam etc to etc. Oh, it won't let me. Oh, hold on. I did it backwards. Source. Oh, that's right. Ln source and destination. Yeah. Oh, it won't let me do it. Maybe. Yeah, a hard link is not allowed for that directory. So by default, Red Hat has blocked hard links to that directory because they know this directory is important. That's fine. Let's see. Let's make dir slash hard links, and then let's do a ln dash s uh source destination. We'll call it HD. So HD points to hard links as a soft link. And now we'll do the same thing again and we'll call it 2. Okay, and let me do it. No protection there. All right. So let's clear. Sorry. And let's do it LL. Oh, LL, LS. Let's do it LS minus IL. That's what I want. Okay. So I'm showing you this because now uh if I go here to hard links, and let me do that, ls minus il for hard links minus, you don't want to give it to me, okay, ls minus il. All right, so what ends up happening with a soft link and a hard link is when I go to erase the hard link to this one here, I'm actually going to erase the directory. But if I do the soft link, I'm only erasing the link. Why is this important? That is important because you don't want to end up in a situation where you create a link, a hard link to something, and then you delete the hard link, you delete everything that's associated, excuse me, with it. And so that could be a problem. So why didn't it let me do that to the Etsy directory? I'm going to tell you these things now. All right. Your bin directory we discussed is where you find your commands, your basically your binaries. Your boot directory is where you find all your stuff that you need for like your system. This is your image. This init RAM FS, what gets loaded up into memory. You'll see next week I'll do a boot up. I'll bring up a system. I have VirtualBox on my machine, so I'll bring it up. And then grub your bootloader and all that. This is where you find everything at for your file system, basically your kernel for your files for your Linux box. Your dev is usually where you find your devices. And when I say devices, remember when we did the df minus h? Well, as you can see right here, there's that VDA1. It's actually your partitions, your hard drives, your mouse, your monitors, everything that's a device about your system. And when I say your system, whether it's a laptop or a desktop or instance or whatever, that's where you find all your devices. So it's clear. Hard links still something I just created, so let me do a remove dash rf hard links. All right, I had to do dash rf because it's a directory. If it was a file, I wouldn't have to do that. All right, so our we see now we have Etsy. Well, let's CD over to Etsy. Etsy or etc is where you're gonna find all your config files. Remember before when we were doing and give you a little thing where you can use history to go back and get a listing of your commands. I'm gonna do history and I'm gonna grep for network. Remember before I went to this directory etc sysconfig network scripts and ifcfg eta0. Well, I went there because I went down that path because etc is where I do configuration changes. So for me to do a configuration change, I have to go down. Any configuration change that you normally have to have for anything that gets installed by standards, by standards and rules. If the person who creates the package, everything should fall under etc. So anytime you want to change something, it should be under etc, and that's what etc is for: configuration changes of services and so forth. The next one is your home directory. Well, can you imagine what's in home? Probably the user's home. So if I cd over to slash home, you see I have a directory called CentOS. But if I do user add Tamika, and I do ls, you see it created my home directory right there inside of home. So usually your home directories are inside of home. So your lib and your lib64, these are libraries. Libs are your 32-bit libraries and lib64 are your 64-bit libraries. Media was something new. I think that came out in probably 6.7 or 6.9. I think, I can't remember. Man, yeah, it came out sometime around that time. Can't remember. But anyway, media is where you get, like, if you have a CD-ROM drive and you need to mount, it usually gets mounted under media. It used to get mounted on an MNT, but people have gone away from that. Opt is where we admins or users kind of put third party software and so forth. Now proc, that's another important system. I'm going to give you the ones that are important. Really all of them: bin, boot, dev, etc. Libraries are always important, but proc is important. Why? Okay, so proc is really where you can go find out real time info, like what is the system doing right now. So if I do a cat on VMstat, this is what's going on my system in real time right now. If I needed to change something, I could change something um, in here, or there's another, maybe another configuration file to that. But excuse me, this gives you real time information. And so, FYI, an interview question is, how do I see what's going on with the system in real time? Slash proc gives you that. The next one is run. Well, root is another one. So me being logged in as root, my home directory is probably slash root, but also root directory is where you normally find things like after their system gets kickstarted and installed. It by default it leaves this configuration file here. So you can go back and use the same configuration file, this kickstart, in order to make a similar system as what you have now. So if I wanted to create another instance just like this, I would come in here and I would use this as my kickstart. And it walks through and they show you like what they got rid of, what packages got installed by default, what are they removing, like they're removing log files and so forth. So it's just a real way to go back and say, I need to get this same system that I have out on DigitalOcean up somewhere else. I could take that config file and build my system against that config file. um this right here stuff is I was doing. I added this Zabbit servers and stuff, so that's not native, and Go isn't native either. All right, so run. I'm gonna come back to that because I want to take you to Red Hat's website, but I want to finish these off. Smin, remember we talked about commands, but those commands are ran as a root user. We'll talk about SRV in a minute and sys in a minute. Temp, every every machine has a temp folder or directory. That's where you just it's just junk. If you looked over in temp, you'll see that you see like stuff that the system has created and whatnot. What's cool about this is temp has an automatic kind of like a garbage disposal. Like when things when every so many days the temp directory gets erased. Slash user, you can see there's user bin, user Etsy. These are things that uh, a lot of packages get installed this way. User lib, user 64, sbin. A lot of packages and a lot of commands get installed under here too. And slash var, last but not least, is where you'll find your log files. Usually, when you want to do troubleshooting, usually slash var is where you want to go to look for stuff. Any questions so far before I go down the path of explaining to you what SRV and sys and run are? No? Okay. All right. So there's that proc. So the sys file system, all right. So their description is, this is where you have a union of proc, device file system, and device PTY. They're saying here like the sys file system enumerates the devices, the buses attached to them, the system into a file system hardware that can be accessed from the user space. All right, so let's go and check it out. Is that what it is? Just sys? Okay. All right, so there you go. Block devices, dev, firmware, the hypervisor. Let's go to hypervisor. Let's see what's in there. Nothing. It's clear. And let's do a ls star/star on slash sys. All right, didn't give me anything. All right, there we go. All right, so what I did was I did ls on let's clear. Let's do this without that. There we go. So what I did was I just said, okay, everything the wild card that star is a wild card. Give me everything under the sys file system. So I went through and said, okay, under firmware you have this information under file system. You have your SE Linux, and XFS is the file system of default file system for RHEL 6 and RHEL 7. Sys kernel. These are different kernel parameters that you can eventually set and pass. These modules are actually drivers. Like, hey, I have an NVIDIA card on my machine, so I need a driver, maybe an NVIDIA driver. Your power, sys power. This talks about taking the systems up and down. You could probably pass the command that or change a text file. We could look and see here. Let's look and see what this is under sys power. Let's clear. And then the CD over to sys and CD over to power, change directory, and do it ls. Now I want to find out what kind of is disk a file or what. So let's do it ll. We know it's not a character device because there's no C in the front, and I'll show you a character device in a minute, and then slash dev directory. But if I go here and I do a file on disk, it's an ASCII file. So it tells me I can edit this file. So in here, I can do platform, shutdown, suspend, or reboot. So I can literally change these parameters and then go from there. Let's look at VM image size. I can change this image size. I can, let's do a vim on the state. Freeze mem disk. Probably one of these is probably a default. It doesn't look like anything gets selected, but I could change those things. So that's just good to know, something that you could do in real time under the sys directory. Let's go back up. And the other one I wanted to show you was SRV. And remember, not half the time when you want to look up stuff is how you look up stuff is very important. So let's look and see what they say about the SRV. All right. The directory contains site-specific data reserved for your system running Red Hat. This is a directory that gives users the location of files for a particular service. All right. So let's go in there and see what we got going on. SRV. Oh, I don't have anything. I don't have any service installed, but let's do something. The package manager to install stuff for Red Hat is Yum, and I'm going to install FTP. And I just want to see if this directory changes. Nope, nothing there. If I install HTTPD, would that change anything? It's already installed, so no. Let's see what they're talking about. And this looked like this is from RHEL 5, but let's do RHEL 7. Yeah. Let's see if they give us the SRV. All right, the SRV directory contains site-specified data reserved, such as FTP, WW, and CVS. Data that only pertains to a specific user should go in home. So I didn't see anything get created when I did SRV, and HTTPD is already installed, and CVS is. I don't even know if it's still in the repos. Let's see. Should be, but hey, never know. Let me see what happens when I go out. Nothing. So it's nothing in there. So it may be when the process is running, from that perspective. So system cuddle is how you get services to start. So system CTL status HTTPD. As you can see, it's actively running, and I still don't see anything in this SRV directory. So let's do a restart. Maybe it goes away and dies. Yeah, nothing there. Yeah, nothing there. So I don't know. That's what they say it does. That's what it say it's for. But as you can see, I haven't seen anything. I had to ask some of the Red Hat folks on that one. So I went over the media, proc, root, SBIN, SRV, sys, var. I went over every last one of these directories to give you an idea of like what do you find in those directories and what are they good for, because when you log into a box, you would want to know these things. Does anyone have any questions on that? On like those are like overview of all those directories. You'll eventually start playing with them as you get into more into it. But any questions? No? Okay. All right. So let's talk about some basic Linux commands. We went over directories. I showed you how to get what you've done in the past as far as the history goes. You can type history and gives you a list of commands if you ran. PWD gives you where you're currently at. So if I went to etc, then I type PWD, it gives me the directory I'm currently in. Another thing that you could we should cover is package managers. So I'm gonna provide some links for you here. Yum real. And this is six, but gets you the basics. It's fine for what we're trying to do tonight. All right, so Yum is the package manager. And when I say package manager, it's like when I need to install a package or I need to revert back, I can do a Yum history. And this tells me what I've installed, right? You see what I've installed, uh what file, what command that was, what ID it was, and the command for it. And why is that important? That's important because now if I want to revert back to say what the system was at 15, I can do yum undo history and then provide a number. And then how do I know all these commands? Remember, our favorite tool is what? Man. So man, and do a man on yum. Remember, yum is a command, and so is man. Let's see something. You want to do a man on man? Man on man. Look, man on man tells you an interface to online reference manuals. Ta-da, man on man. All right, so let's do a man on yum. All right. So by doing a man on Yum, and I was showing you like how to undo history, but there are other commands that you can use with Yum. I can do install. I can update to a specific package. I can upgrade. I can do a repo. Find out what repos are listed. Give me info on repos. So let's do that. Yum repo list. Well, it tells me that I have these repos: base, EPL, extras, and updates. But guess where it's pulling that from? It's pulling from a configuration file. And where's that configuration file found at? Etsy. So I'm in Etsy right now. I am. So if I went over to yum.repod and do ls, I have these repo files that tell Yum if they are activated, and then pull this information in. So if I do a vim on epel.repo, you'll see here that I have the name, and then the base search is just a variable that tells them to search the base of of what I am on. It tells them where to pull that from, and it's a priority, and it's enabled, and do a GPG check. I won't go into GPG check right now, but this is where you find out where this stuff gets pulled from when I do a yum repo list. It's pulling from this directory and from these files in that directory. So remember, it's a configuration. So it's in slash Etsy. All right. So let's go back to man on yum. If I want to do a local install, I can do local install. I can also do a yum search. So let's clear and say I want to say yum search, and it's going to search all the enabled repos that I have selected, and then it's going to search for telnet. Right, let's search for a package. So it's going to go out to all the repos and pull back everything with, you can see everything that has the word telnet in it and the description right there, as you can see. And it didn't matter about whether it was capitalized or not. So it goes back and pull everything. So let's clear that and do a yum search yum. Now you can see there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. We have stuff that with descriptions with yum in it, even though it says CentOS release OpenShift. You have yum plugins. You have Yum Network Manager, the whole nine. So this is just another way for you to see what's going on. If I want to do a Yum dash dash help, that's just gonna give me like a slimmed down version of the man pages. The man pages gives you a little bit more details, and sometimes they give you examples. So the other package manager that we have, and I don't want to say package manager. I'm gonna call this more like it is a package manager, but it's called RPM. All right. So what's the difference between RPM and what's the difference between Yum? Two big major differences. Yum, what Yum does is it pulls from the repos that you have listed, and it'll pull in the actual dependencies as well that are associated with that package you want to install. Whereas RPM says, hey, I have a RPM and I want to install it, but I may have dependencies, but you got to figure out what they are. I'll tell you, but you need to go download them and figure out what to do with them. Whereas Yum says, hey, I have dependencies and I know where to find them. I'll install them for you. So Yum is your friend. RPM can be your friend in dire needs, but try to stay away from RPM. They both have databases or keep a catalog of what gets installed and so forth. So that's important. So if I do a RPM dash QA, and let me clear my screen here because it's going to scroll off. So I'm going to do a RPM dash QA. What am I doing? I am running the RPM command, and I'm querying all RPMs that are on this system, but it's going to pull from the database. So as you can see, it queried everything. But guess what? I want to do a RPM. I want to dash QA. I want to grep for SSH. So I can do a grep dash I, ignore the case, whether it's capitalized or lowercase, and type SSH. And it went in and found everything that's associated with SSH. Right? All the packages that have SSH in this name. Well, here's one thing that's cool about that is I can do a man on RPM, and you can see here I got some different things that different information that I can get about an RPM or in the package about, right? So I want to know some more information. So I have some query options here. I can uh, grab config files. I can do files by package, or I can do info. So let's do RPM uh, dash. Let's do dash Q query info uh, LC on this guy here. This should work. It's not installed. Awesome. You see, it's not installed. So if the RPM isn't installed, it can't query the database. However, I can do a yum info on that very same thing. And yum doesn't have a package listed out there. Let's do this. Yeah, all right. Found that. So what Yum is telling me, and you can see here, that's the same package. Well, Yum doing the info on it, it gives me um, the size of it. It says that it's installed, but it's funny. RPM said it wasn't installed. Huh? That's because it's 7.4 underscore. That's what that is. I should have changed it. It probably gets we probably had to query this way versus querying this way. That's okay. And then it gives you a summary of it, where the base URL, like where that package could potentially have came from, and then information about it. And so that gives you like an overview of the differences between Yum and RPM, which is your package managers as well. So again, man on RPM gives you information about what you can do with the RPM. You can install, upgrade, freshen it, erase it, do queries on it, so you can find out different information. And then you keep scrolling down. You can set things up, but they also try to give you examples down here, like you can force a package or something of that nature. Ignore the size and just do it. Don't worry about dependencies. Worry about dependencies, I'm telling you, and just go in and install. So there's just different things that you can do and so forth. So that's what I wanted to show you all today. I want to also leave time for questions as well. I just want to give you like a very brief overview of Linux itself. But I also want to. I'm gonna stop recording, but I also want to show you uh, potential jobs and so forth. So, any questions?